The mind is a prism, and prisms trap light. Now, the mind is not a bad thing. It is a tool to be used, but if we can understand how it functions, we can also understand how it's a direct mirror to pure awareness, our pure consciousness. But if we don't understand how it functions and we get swept up by it, it can keep us from our pure state of awareness, our pure consciousness. So often we'll notice, I'm sure you all have experienced where if you're in the mindset of like, I need to move forward, I need to progress, I need to become more of myself, essentially. Have any sort of thoughts like that? The mind gets into this mode of, well, if I stopped doing this, or if I started doing this, or maybe if I was this way, it's always thinking about how to solve something, how to repair something that's broken, how to, like, what can I do, what can I change, because until I change this, until I get over that next thing, I won't be there. And that's one of the subtle traps that the mind plays on us. It's good to be forward thinking, absolutely, but if we fall into the trap of allowing the mind to place us into a sort of like the donkey chasing the carrot sort of thing, where it's like, I cannot arrive until after I've done this. I cannot get there. I won't be there until after I've done this. So long as we're doing that, the mind has trapped us, like the prism that it is. This is kind of like the mind will be like, it'll put you into a puddle, and then it will be telling you all these ways that you could get outside of the puddle, when really to step back and step outside of the puddle is the way to get outside of it. And it seems so simple, right? It seems so obvious, but this is actually how consciousness works, and how we step into the observer, how we turn the subject into an object. We make the subject objective. Now, what I mean by that is, let's say the mind is thinking, oh man, that habit or that thing that I do, I shouldn't do that thing. If I stop doing that thing, maybe then I would be at a higher stage of consciousness. Once you notice that you've been through many of those throughout your life, like you've been through many of those where the mind is telling you, once I do this, and then you do it, and then it comes back, what you then see is that it's the same mechanism with a different face. And then you start to see that this mechanism is not actually going away. So that mechanism is not something that is going to lead you to an end of it, because it is a self-perpetuating mechanism. It is a mechanism that is the ego's draw to, like, oh, I need to keep progressing, I need to keep moving, I need to keep progressing. Like I said, that's not a bad thing. But if you get swept up in it and you're trying to use that to actually step into a state of higher consciousness, it will forever keep you in a loop. And most people are forever in that loop. They're forever thinking, once I do the next thing, and then once I do the next thing, and then once I do the next thing. But the trick, my friends, is to recognize the mechanism behind the thing that is being presented to you. Because when you recognize the mechanism behind the thing, you're able to actually step out of it and turn that subject into an object. That's how you become the awareness. That's how you become the one who is aware of the mind and not consumed by it. Now, like I said, the mind is a prism. Your soul, your consciousness, the very light essence that pours through you is something that shines through the mind, like a light, and that mind is refracting that light in a way that creates your reality in a specific way. So if the soul gets trapped up within that prism, then it begins to see reality as if it is that prism. And this is how the mind works. It's not a malicious thing, the mind, but it's more so just, it can be so alluring to get so swept up in that, because the awareness is to actually say, wait a second, let me step back, let me disengage. Like, let me take the wheel, let me take the gears apart, let me take the cog off of the wheel, and let's let it cool off for a second. Because oftentimes, especially when it comes to people who overthink, it's because they're overly engaged with their mind. It's because you're so into what the mind is doing, you're just like, man, and then the emotions get involved, and then eventually, like I said, it's like two gears rubbing together, and they get hotter and hotter and hotter, and it goes faster and faster. And the mind just perpetuates this idea of like, I have to fix this in order to reach peace, in order to find that place of stillness. when the place of stillness is actually to remove yourself from it. Now, I'm not saying to be passive about things. I'm not saying to bypass things that you might need to pay attention to, but I'm saying that while we use this mechanism as a tool, and in the right place, this mechanism is a very effective thing in actually moving things forward in our life, to be identified with that mechanism is actually something that's keeping us from the state of self-awareness that we need to be in order to be the director of our life, in order to be one that is actually choosing what's happening instead of just getting swept up in whatever the mind is getting swept up in. Because if it becomes too convoluted, if we lose ourselves too much in it, it can just become more and more distorted until eventually the entire identity of the individual is no longer something of clarity. It's no longer something of the supreme self because it has been so buried and convoluted in the ideas of the mind. And this can really have some devastating effects on the individual. Because the individual can then go about thinking that it's like, well, I'm less because of this, and because I can't do this, and blah, 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 and there's all these problems and all these things I have to fix. Think of how much energy that takes. Those of you who have experienced this know how much energy this takes. You know how much energy your mind is putting into all these different things, and to take your energy back, because you need to realize and remember that your energy is the most important thing that you have. So to take your energy back is to step outside of it. It's to sit and be aware of it, because then you're just, okay, I'm just in my energy. I can let the mind do what the mind is doing. I can let this go for the moment, and it's not going to be the end of the world. It's not going to be like the room is on fire and I need to take care of something right now. Obviously, if that's the case, please do take care of what you need to take care of. But if it's something that you're just thinking to think, and thinking about thoughts, and thinking about this, and thinking and blah, 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 and it's going in these loops, watch. Just step back and watch. Give yourself permission to detach from it and allow it to work out. And what will happen, just like the surface of the water, it's going to smooth because you stopped splashing in it. You know, you cannot smooth the surface of the water with your hands. You're trying to see through it. You're trying to get clarity, and you're splashing around. It's because you're trying to see through it, and you're just creating more waves. You're creating more tension. So, my friends, to actually step into a higher state of consciousness, we need to step back, turn the subject into the object, and then be aware of the object. Be aware of the self, and then be aware of the object in which the self is engaged. Because that's what it is. We are not the mind. We are the one that works through the mind. And that is the awareness of the self, my friends. All right? So I hope that makes sense. And with that, be whole, be well, and take care. We'll talk soon.